Welcome back to another week of the Leonis Report, everybody. Episode 34, JB and I here tonight. JB, how's it going, man?
Doing good, doing good. Just catching up from over the weekend. Had a busy day at work today, and busy weekend with the game as well. We had the update there on Friday, and the new Final Fantasy 9 characters coming in. So that was all very exciting. How about you? How was the weekend?
It was good, pretty low key. Finally recovering from COVID. We're still pretty exhausted, but all things considered, like we're getting back to normal. So
You sound a little bit more fresh today than last
yeah,
week, I
I
think.
probably still look exhausted, but at least like I'm not as nasal as I was back a week ago. But
That's good. Road to recovery.
I know, seriously. Hey, got to do it. But we got at least Final Fantasy 9 to help get me through it. We finally have our characters released. I was finally able to max Zidane today, use him in arena a little bit. I know our initial thoughts and conversations so far about it has really been like first impressions because we never really did our character reviews where we really like push and prod them. I know we have Vivi coming. We're going to talk a little bit about him, but any last minute thoughts on things that you might have like misunderstood about Zidane or Dagger, or things you maybe rescind now that you thought about it a little more?
So Dagger, I've decided to complete slow build. I decided, with the increased cost on the vision card, with the hollow cards ended up being no vision stars or anything. So that increased expense. I said not going to buy any shards for Dagger. I'm just going to play out the whole 46 days in Chocobo and whatever freebies I can get, and I'll finish her later. But I did grab Zidane. I was able to get him relatively cheaply. Thankfully, I got him at about 12 or 14K, I want to say. So that
Oh,
was very,
nice.
very nice. So I was able to build him up relatively easily, and just got him to 140 today. Started playing with him in the arena, doing some testing, and he's pretty solid. He's got that long range and like the calculated Ren-like ability. That's a really, really good ability.
Yep.
One thing that I was testing today was his Intimidator attack, I believe it's called, and that's the one that does the crit damage and peril.
Yep.
And the way that I thought that it would work is that it would essentially just increase your actual crit damage bonus, and it would be kind of like a menial increase in damage. What I actually found is that assuming that you do crit, it's just a flat, 20% essentially bonus damage, it's like a final damage modifier. So if you're doing 1,000 damage before, you're doing 1,200 now. So pretty significant, I think. The one issue that I have with it, at least in terms of autoplay, and this is something that I have in my review as well that I'm putting out. It's essentially the AI's priority of it. I never see him use that ability ever.
Right.
He's always going for the LB, or he's going for his job 25 if it's a single target. Otherwise, he's always using Punishing Blade, which is that large AoE attack. So I think it is meant for more manual control situations where you can set up, follow-up attacks like a guild raid situation or a manual PvP. And that's fine. Not every ability needs to be for auto.
Yep. I agree. Yeah. So you brought that to my attention earlier, talking about the damage increase, and I was skeptical at first because I was under the same impression that I thought it was literally just, let's say you had 50 crit damage in your character build, that it would amplify that 50 modifier by 20%. It's not the case. It's literally the whole modifier of all the attacks. So whether you have extra crit damage or wind attack, it's irrelevant. It all gets that boost. So it's much more sizable than I thought it was. It's definitely material. To your point, though, you bring like excellent point for auto PvP. It's such a low priority where the limit break does the most damage. Technically, his 120 will then do the most damage, which is the 20 unit res down. And then that's not including whether or not he's weaving that AoE into there. So to your point, that decrease of crit evasion, that's a more of a PvE thing in my opinion at this point, and like you said, a manual play, because by the time he actually ends up using it, maybe it's a good finisher move, who knows, but I don't really see that being a reliable thing. So it's good news and bad news, but he's definitely better than I thought he was going to be as well. I know there's big questions about his accuracy, and so we haven't really stress tested that. I did a little bit earlier in Arena, and yeah, he's like missing on some stuff that I wouldn't want him to miss on. But durability-wise, he's pretty darn decent. Damage-wise, I was very happy as well with him just cleaving through enemies that I was seeing. So I'm pretty happy with him. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
Like if you go full damage build, I think the damage is definitely there. If you really have to like build out his accuracy to hit evade teams, the damage really falls off, a decent amount. So it ends up being a bit more average. And that's really where I've been doing the most testing with him, because when I go to that win team with Glaciella, like I'm really wanting an evade hunting team and somebody that really excels against that. And especially with light kind of going into that toxic evade again, really maxing out and min-maxing that. It's been seeing it all over the place in the top 10 and seeing it in high-end arena as well. Yeah, if you don't fully invest into accuracy, he will miss all the time against that light team.
Yeah.
So you really need to go all out.
Definitely. I've at least appreciated, though, with him with Glaciella, her teammate buff is an accuracy up buff. So obviously that wears off. You got to take advantage of it early. But there's a pretty nice synergy there innately, despite the fact that she herself can take on that evade team. But you obviously want him chipping in as well. Yeah, I think he's as good as we thought he was. He's a very solid unit. He's probably the best wind unit if you were to rank, or one of the top three, not the best. But he's one of the top three wind damage dealers if we're about to rank them right now. And I could see him like coming in and out of usage as the game goes on. He's got some stuff that I think will scale okay.
I really like his buff for the decreased magic mitigation. It's similar to the one that Helena has within her buffs, damage cut of 25%. And I really like the potential of that as we look forward to, we know we're eventually going to get some magic tank that has a magic aura. And you think about maybe stacking those two effects together would be very, very, very strong at that point. So
yeah.
He does also have the courage angle where he can debuff the courage removal. So, and with him having that long 6 range on his on a punishing blade ability, that gives him a decent chance to apply that to most of the team.
Definitely does. Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll skip ahead real quickly because we'll talk about Dagger for a moment. And I say skip ahead because my impressions of Dagger, I realized when I did my character review, it's a different unit without the Vivi vision card. That vision card is so monumental to what it does for those classes of magic units because I keep saying this. Dagger to me isn't it's a hard sell in mono earth. There's so many other good options. It's not that she's worse, it's just different. So it's a hard sell. But I do like her as a mace unit for rainbow teams when you talk about attacking anti-magic or trying to be anti-magic. And the problem I was running into when I was doing my sample builds is that her stats were drastically inferior. Both HP and even the magic stat just did not look good. The agility, honestly, I got to a decent place, like low 100s. I was pretty comfortable with that. But this VV Vision card, the magic percentage on the main slot there, drastically increases her overall magic in terms of what she does for damage and healing. And so, my sample builds wasn't looking all that great, but I did one today for my Vivi review, and her stats are way healthier in mixing that rainbow team. So I still think she's not a bad unit, all things considered in terms of what she adds for utility, but yeah, not amazing.
That's really like her best stat is her base magic. Like that's the one that she's I think she's like top 5 or top 10 at least.
Yep.
But over 400 base magic, so she scales extremely well with the 50% magic cards.
Yep.
I noticed the same when I was building her out. I did like that job synergy team a little bit better just because it's I think she can bring something to that team that maybe they didn't necessarily have or don't have enough of, which is kind of the offensive support. I kind of feel the same at this point, even though I haven't really been able to play with her yet myself. But, in building her out and kind of getting a closer look at her, I think that she's fine. She's good. She's not going to be, a top of the charts kind of unit though.
No, definitely not. And I've been considering something unique too, because her passive abilities, one of the ones that I feel like you always would normally have to have on is the cast time reduction on her. And as I'm kind of like weighing the pros and cons, obviously she's got that one main passive that you'll always have on. It's got the 4 attributes. But she's got another one that's the magic 30%. And there's like a little voice in my head. I'm like, if you look at the cast time breakpoints, she naturally is about like 3 ticks for all of them. And I was kind of playing devil's advocate, was like, if you equip her passive, you bring it down to 2 ticks, but you lose out on all that magic. And I was kind of thinking to myself, I'm like, but you know what? 3 ticks was a death sentence in the Elia meta because you'd get canceled most of the time, number one. But there was also a time where cast time was exceptionally important because you would get huge disparity in agility values in a lot of these units. I remember times where like 120 was like a pretty average agility stat between like Elena and Locke and a whole bunch of those characters for a while. And right now, like all these like top tier meta units and tanks and Dialdo and Raph and all them, you're still in the low 100s. So in terms of people like lapping you or maybe getting their turn way ahead of that 3rd tick, I don't think it's nearly as punishing as it might have been in the times past. So I'm intrigued to see what I can do to stress test that magic value on her and see what that does for like the damage and the sustain. Yeah.
Similar to Zidane, also very, very poor with her accuracy, and she just has the Kododama, 100% hit, which is tough. I mean, you always would like it to be in the main kit so that you can be a little bit more flexible with the sub builds. I do kind of like the sword sorcerer job overall. It gives her the kind of the slash damage that she can mix in there if casting is an issue. The problem is, though, the one skill that you really want her to cast is the Dark Megaton, which is the Bahamut ability, and that's the one that gets her the sequential healing. So I do think the casting time is important. I mean, you could also look at TMRs. Unlike some other units, she's not necessarily like tied into the buffs that she has in her main kit. You could easily bring in Dark Fiend as TMR and kind of get her casting very, very quickly.
Yeah, I hammered that TMR home. Like, I think that's what the best time I've ever seen for that TMR. Not only does that get her to 80 penetration, but that cast time, yeah, that's like almost insta cast depending on how you want to work it in. So I'm a big fan of that. I agree though, the accuracy is tough for that because you will not proc the Kira. It's post damage, which means you have to initiate the hit. Even the decrease of Spirit Pen is reliant upon that hit. So at the end of the day though, there's still not a lot of like evasive mages. Black Rose Helena is like probably the closest we've seen, but even then, she is like the bare bottom tier of what an evade unit theoretically is. So yeah, and at least Garnet has, if you run into that evade team, the Princess of Alexander, that heal ability on her sub job, like that's not the worst use of an ability, is to say get just a constant curata on your team. Not as intended, but it's not a loss, as opposed to like Zidane. If you don't gear him for accuracy, he is just like useless.
And I mean, this current like semi evasion sort of meta, or whatever it is we're going through right now, I don't think it's going to last all that long, because we do have, wind is going to be built up here pretty soon, one of the more accurate elements in the game. And as those more accurate units come into the meta, some of these little evasion plays get sort of played out. So,
Yep.
there's going to be windows of opportunity where you can use less accurate units.
Definitely. And just you touched on something that I'm still super intrigued by. I don't know, we're talking about her probably more than she deserves, but the sword sorcerer sub job, I'm like actually pleasantly surprised by how valuable I think that actually is, and I really hyped on it or harped on it with the King Bradley synergy of chaining Earth slash attacks, where when you consider the Mont Leonis like King whatever, the Earth card is 35 slash res pen. Well, her sword sorcerer gives her another 40 on an ability. So you're talking a character that is still in that like 75 to 85 slash res pen, double hitting with Bradley on a spirit scaling slash. Like there's some underrated magic damage there that I don't really think about for her unit because it's not her niche. But I think it's surprising for some people that might get caught off guard by it.
I think so. I mean, I've used Dia quite a bit in limited play, and she has that double arc ability. Does a ton of damage. So, I've seen her damage cap a lot of units with it. So I'm sure Garnet can do the same.
Yep, definitely sleeping on that a little. But the third unit, Vivi, is coming into the game this week, and I'm just wrapping up my review for him. I am excited, probably more for the Vision card than I am for him, but he is absolutely like an A tier unit for me. He is a substantial improvement to that class of characters on the staff Black Mage, and he's such a well-rounded character in terms of like his self-sustainability with. He's got that self re-raise, and his weapon is 8% physical damage reduction. And God, what else does he have? He has something else too, but there's a lot, and I'm just impressed by it.
His weapon is quite incredible because it also gives some immunity to CT down effects, which, if you think about that Alaya matchup, that's one of the reasons why she's so powerful, is because she comes in with her haste and casts her CT down, and then it's like almost an instant lap against the whoever she hits. So I really like that for him. I mean, he comes in as very anti-strike in general. He's got good strike resistance. I think he gets a little bit of unit resistance in there. But then, he also has that heal back ability passively
That's what it was.
Yeah, that's super nice. He's got he relies heavily on the re-raise too for his survivability. But similar to Helena, he also has the ability to seal re-raise removal. And, he's another one that's got these big, large AoEs, so he can potentially hit the whole team with that and, save your whole team from getting re-raise dispelled.
Yep.
So very,
Definitely.
very, very cool.
And honorable mention too. We'll talk about young Eld in a second, but young Eld also has a CT down ability. So in the future, that's also going to come back into play potentially. And I think you were just talking about it a second ago. To the point about the anti-strike, you're right. Innately, he is already built that way. But when you consider Staff Black Mage and even Mono Dark, Greater Demon is like a best in slot agility card for him in whatever team he's in, which has all that extra strike res. So on top of innately, the Vision card synergy lines up right for that. Yeah, Eli's going to have a very difficult time going into that.
I know over in JP, the Helena Vivi combination has been one of the top meta teams. It's been very hard to beat. I mean, there has been teams that can beat it, but you really have to kind of go in and tune against that specific team. So very, very strong unit. Obviously, the synergy is there with Raph, not only with the mace synergy that Black Mage has, but also elemental wise is very, very strong. So I imagine we'll see an uptick in Mono Dark play when he comes out, and also people like doing that Black Mage combo as well.
Definitely. Yeah. No, I am very much looking forward to that Black Rose Helena matchup with Vivi. I'm still not against the mono dark aspect too. I still think like Sephiroth adds some value to that team. Where if you're talking like the Vision card synergy, the Vision cards is definitely still there, if not more so. But yeah, there's a lot of options for Vivi that he is not only self sustainable, but any team you put him in, he adds a lot to it.
This current Guild War map that we're on as well has quite a few bonuses for Dark and Black Mage. So, I mean, that
Yes.
certainly, I'm sure, has there's the Puppet Master effect, but that has something to do with it as well. I do really like his large Diamond AoE. It gives him that CT up effect, like we've seen with
Yes.
Bradley, and it is one of his preferred attacks. It's got one of his highest modifiers. He's got some pretty decent utility with the shell removal. It's got a cross AoE 100% hit. He also has the Red Mage sub job, so a lot of people I've seen over in JP use the fast cast for the haste. That also reduces his casting time as well, so he's just thrown out instant casts very, very easily. You don't really even need to invest into that. So
Yep.
overall, very, very strong character. Obviously, the limit burst is the one thing I think we haven't mentioned yet, but 67% chance to stun. That's very hard to guard against.
I was gonna say I don't think people are ready for that. I think people forget just how debilitating something like that would be to say just stun your team out of an entire turn. You might be kind of used to it right now with sleep, but stun is a whole different beast because there really is not a lot of counterplay, if any, for it. Yeah.
There's not any one TMR that I'm aware of that will negate both of those. So you're kind of locked into, finding that, something like that Minwoo TMR that I've mentioned before, and then just, using the white marshmallows like a lot of us have been right now for the sleep.
Yep. Definitely. Yeah. Overall, I'll be pulling for Vivi. I'm not in a good place too, but I know I'll regret it if I don't because he is a substantial upgrade to that staff black mage and one of those units that I do see him as a great rainbow unit because he's just so self-sufficient with all the survivability tools we just talked about and what he brings for magic damage.
Plus he's so darn cute, so he's got that going for him
The
too.
animation's great, just a little weeble wobble back and forth as he goes up the map.
Yeah.
It's almost distracting like how much they actually did it to spec.
And he's designed after kind of the classic Final Fantasy 1 Black Mage, which is super cool.
Yeah.
I'm a fan.
No, me too. Me too. But yeah, for next couple topics, there's really not a lot of content in global at the moment, other than the Final Fantasy IX collab. Trials of Reckoning is still like 3 weeks away at this point. I think 2.5 weeks. Yeah. So we got some time for that. So keep building. There's really no other like unique PvP matches going on in terms of class match or anything. So we're gonna kind of skip ahead here and talk about Young Eld, who was released in JP, the new Water Pierce unit. And I don't know if you've had a chance to take a closer look at him at all. Do you have any initial impressions in looking at him as a unit? Is he the Pierce guy that was gonna, bring that meta everyone keeps kind of itching toward?
I do have to say I completely nailed that this guy was coming and when he was coming and when we were going to get him. So I'm going to put my money down that I think Eld is going to be coming here in the short future. So
you know what? I buy it. Keep cooking because I buy it. It's you're right. We keep talking about this impending meta defining Pierce unit, and like that lines up perfectly if it's him.
I'm pretty happy with myself about that, but he looks really good. I mean, he's at least an A unit, maybe better, significant unit. Like this is not another Ice Jaden. This is somebody that's going to shape the meta going forward. Whether he's like the ultimate shaper or whether he's like the sidekick to whoever that ends up being, I'm not quite sure yet. I haven't seen enough of it yet. But he's very, very strong. Like he has a lot of tools. He's got an aura ability, our first damage aura, which we were kind of waiting to. So far, it's been mostly sort of defensive based effects. This one, he adds 15% amplification to damage to his teammates.
Physical damage, specifically.
Physical damage, yeah.
Right. So womp to Jada the Celebrated, who will not get the benefit of that.
I know. He's also got the Pierce and Peril, kind of limited in a lot of his range. That's kind of like the big knock on him so far. He's got like the one ability that's like the triple cross pattern, but aside from that, a lot of the rest of his abilities are relatively short range.
Yep.
He does have the Trick Lancer sub though with the Binding Javelin. That's always a pretty nice skill with the immobilized chance there.
That's right. Good healing power down to its 60 healing power down upon critical hit. Yep.
I like the Limit Burst because that's also kind of like a flag bearer kind of thing where he has this AoE buff that goes out with the CT up to the two allies, the attack and accuracy. He seems like a really good enabling unit. Like he's got Imperil's, he's got really nice buffs. So I think there's going to be more to come with Pierce where we're going to see like a bomb damage dealer that's going to go with him. Probably going to be Volk.
Yes, it would have to be Volk. I mean, being pragmatic here, but yeah, no, he is a excellent character. I mean, that cross-shaped AoE, number one, I like it because it's not the normal range of Bradley and Zidane's. Theirs is 6 squares away, which is just a smidge too far for me. I like the 5. That to me is the sweet spot. And that's a barrier break. It's 40 defense pen for 3 turns. That'll get him up to 80, 90 for the Truststone passive. It's a double hit. It's also a 30% hit chance, and 30% of the damage done is absorbed. And one of his things on his MA or his 140 is 15 healing power. And so that's going to be a 30% increase of all the healing that it receives back from that. So he's got an enormously large health pool. He's up there with Faris in terms of effective HP for like top 3 DPS units in the game. He is truly like that brawler unit, in my opinion, where they also gave him that 5,000 HP general barrier. It's both magic and physical. Obviously can regenerate some of that health. Even on the Paladin sub, there's an ability there that's a giant AoE, that's a damage absorption, it's a debuff removal for himself. I probably wouldn't lean into that myself. I would probably stick with that Trick Lancer sub, but yeah, that Limit Break, the physical damage up aura, he is a true brawler unit. Like, I could easily see a lot of the top end of the game, like Max reincarnating this unit. He's the kind of guy that increased, like, crit rate, accuracy, HP, and attack, like, all, like, times 1,000 when you amplify it and add it to it. So yeah, he is a big part, and water obviously being fantastic for the element choice. Fire has seen a huge uptick. Even just speaking like mono water, for those that are going back to like kind of those mono element, he adds a whole different complexion to that team with a barrier break, where most water units do not have a barrier break. So he's an upgrade in many regards. And it's one of those teams that like you can probably catch people off guard. You can run different iterations of defenses and change it up every day and throw in a different water unit. The whole team is different. Lots to like about him, yeah.
Oh, I think that the synergy with Glassy and Ferris is off the charts for this guy. Like, never mind Pierce. Like, when he comes out, that water team is going to be stacked. Like, the Glassy Ferris combo already is super solid. Like, it can beat a single Elia. It can beat like a single lightning unit in the other team pretty handily. So Elde's coming in, providing the barrier break, providing some of the offensive potency, even more accuracy, so that you can even further like lean into mitigation rather than Alex rings and things like that. He also has the synergy with Ferris with the nice CT down effect that he has that can go nicely with her limit burst.
Yep.
Even their 2 limit bursts together, with Ferris providing the CT down on the enemy and his providing the CT up, you can kind of get that quicken combo going on with the 2 of them. A lot to like with this with that team. I think it's going to be very strong.
I agree. Even from a mono Pierce perspective, I think there's an argument to be made. I haven't relied on a Paladin Taunting Blade in like a year and a half, but if you're talking about a mono Pierce team, he is brawly enough. I could see instances where you might even sub out Dialdo, where we always talk about Pierce teams and you're like Dialdo and 2 others, and Dialdo and 2 others, and who was the other 2 others? And this is like a unit who I think is bulky enough that you could probably get away with like the Paladin sub and throw in a Taunting Blade, which is 5 scores away, so it's equal range to his barrier break, so maybe the AI would be tough to actually get that off. Now that I'm kind of thinking about it, probably not going to happen. But the idea being that like you could probably get away with removing Dialdo because he's a substantial amount of bulk to frontline.
I mean, you could put some sort of hate item onto him, like a like a bow tie or something to maybe hate down on the others.
Foul of Love, that
To
old, good old vision card in the sub.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
blast from the past. But yeah, I mean, there's ways that you might be able to make that work where maybe he takes an initial hit and then heals it back up with his rend ability, and yeah, I like it.
yeah. But yeah, he's got a ton of AoE res too, which I think makes total sense. Where he obviously wants to keep teammates near him because of his limit break and that aura. That he's gonna get 15 AoE res when his HP is above 70%. He has 15 on a passive, and his buff is another 20. So you're talking what, 35, 40, 50 AoE res before vision cards? Like that is a substantial. Goes right next to Ferris. Like forget about it.
He's one of the rare units that gets a lot of both. Like in his masteries, he's getting 25 unit resistance also.
Yes.
So yeah, he's gonna be a brick wall out there.
Yep. Yep. It does make me wonder if Lightning even could stand a chance. I know you typically think so, but from even just the Ferris Glassy teams I've been facing, like even Lightning is a tough matchup going into the two of them.
I think that's the new Astrius unit. I think that's maybe why they have moved him to maybe try to drum up more demand for him. After this guy comes out and after people are dominating a bit with water, they might want to take another look at Astrius because he's that AoE resistance, he can cut through it just like Helena can. So yeah, I think that improves his value.
Definitely can. And we didn't even mention this. He has a honeycomb barrier effect as well. I think it's decreased from what Squall's is. I don't think it's nearly as potent. But I know there's some translation issues on World of Calc, so I can't say that reliably. But I'm a big fan of that honeycomb. I think people are sleeping on exactly like what that does for damage mitigation. I think it's substantial, and that's obviously another part of his durability.
That's one area where actually having a little bit less range works in his favor because he can get those buffs on. He can take a hit from long range and even reduce it further because of that barrier. And then he comes in with his rend ability and heals it back up, and then you've got problems. So
Yeah.
yeah, I like it quite a bit. I like how they've designed his kit. I think he's going to be really good.
Absolutely. And I'll give honorable mention to his low AP ability too. It's I was actually thinking about doing a video about this on low AP abilities and trying to analyze the X factor when you're like 1v1ing an enemy and you're both at 0 AP. Like how effective is your low AP ability, and trying to give that a grade. And his is a dispel all debuffs for self, which I think late in the fight when you're 1v1ing some people, I like the ability to like cleanse some of the stuff that might normally bring you down, because a lot of those enemies, their low AP abilities are things like reduce agility by 20%, or like Ed Elric is like a strike imperil 25%. Reagan's is 25% defense break. So there's some stuff on those low AP abilities that I like the ability to cleanse. That just another tool for survivability.
Definitely.
Yep.
He does have an arcing javelin shot, which is his job 25 ability.
Removes courage too, if I remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, removes courage. Not a ton of range on there, just a 3 base range, but can maybe get up to 4 if you got the height differential.
Yep. Either way, again, another thing in a studded kit of like utility. Absolutely. So good. All right. Well, on that note, we're going to keep moving ahead. And we did this a couple weeks ago on Bridal Elia's release, where obviously there's a lot of teams and a lot of difficulty playing around her. And so we thought today we would do a little bit of a showcase to see what kind of teams, or at least strategies, can you bring against these different Helena teams. And I've prepared 2 of them. One of them is, and they're both based off the 2 most popular light teams in top 25 at the moment. One of them is an Addison Rae, Helena Stern team, and the other one is a Soul, Shells, and Helena team. And so we figure throw both of those against a couple of varieties, and we just built these teams on a whim, so we're not sure exactly who's going to win, who's going to lose, but conceptually there's probably still a lot that we can learn, and then hopefully you can take away from when you're trying to build these anti-Helena teams. We'll kill some time while we're loading up here. Talk about the map real quickly. So many people are familiar with the Guild War map. Right now, we're going to run 2 different iterations. The first team that I'm going to be running is a mono light. It's going to be Helena in the top in slot 1, Stern in the middle, and Addison in the bottom. And my team is essentially set up so that Stern and Helena move together. I have the bow tie on her in the hopes that maybe she can at least get that second buff off. Maybe a third, very unlikely though. Addison kind of comes up here a little bit slower, and since the hate starts off in this part of the map, my overall hope is that either Addison A can win this little matchup on the very bottom here, or by the time Addison gets over here, she's kind of out of the AoE firing range where Stern and Helena are likely going to be grouped up here. And between Stern's AoE res and what he gives for her for a buff, and she's got the diamond damage reduction, my hope is that they can take like a hit or two here, and Addison kind of like Vanguard and just like jamming thrust from afar and whatnot. So that's my general strategy and for this. And I'm looking at your team. I see Zidane, slot one. What are you trying to pull off here with your win team? All right, so quick take two after we did some tweaking after the first mock. Obviously, toggles matter, guys. Like in case no one remembered, initial placements D2, and so yeah, so we'll see how this ends up working out here. I like where you have Zidane's initial placement here to be able to move over that ledge where normally you can't unless you have jump +1, which he does have.
Yeah, nice that he has that built in.
And then, oh, this is great. Yep, and there's the all element
res. Everybody should get the accuracy buff now, like in case, you know, we're hitting into a heavy evade team.
And we literally were just talking about that, how that's a great synergistic buff between him and Glaciella. Yeah, here's my Addison. I have intentionally a little bit slower. She's seemingly become more fragile as of late. And courage is not a gimme anymore. A lot of people can remove that, so I've been looking to have her back a lot more. So here's Stern with re-raise active. Hopefully Helena can seal their ability to remove re-raise. She's channeling something.
Probably gonna be her Rose Blast here.
Oh.
She could still hit Sottily though. A lot of damage to Sottily.
It was
crazy.
You know, a lot of range. I didn't think she could hit from that far, but it's a height 3 ability too. And there it is. At least she can re-raise because it wasn't removed. Sottily's gonna finish her off here though, I would imagine. Yep, and Doctor. Wow, and Stern took a ton of damage.
And he's confused, which is important.
Good lord. Yeah, this is not going well for me right now, and that is an incredible mid-fight haste. Unless Addison carries this fight at the moment, I am in some serious trouble. Sottily still has his limit break charm as well. This is going to kill Stern. It will re-raise him. Hopefully the CT up can make him lap whoever's next in the turn order.
Yeah, he might go ahead of Sottily here. Ooh, so close there.
Oh!
Try to get a little bit more human killer on my Zidane.
Oh, and he does the limit break here. I was hoping he did AoE re-raise move. I actually don't like this. Because Sadali and Glaciella both have re-raise active. I would have liked... Wait, no they don't. What? Oh, they got removed maybe from Helena.
Yeah, I think I removed at the beginning.
Okay. And at least I get courage. Oh, the follow-up attack that was so nasty.
Yeah, he gets that for 3 turns after he uses Punishing Blades.
You know what? And we didn't mention that earlier. That's such an important part of his kit, too, that follow-up attack. We have a huge hard-on for it. And we talk about, like, Bartz and all those other characters. But, like, Zidane's got it built in, too. It's great for some of that anti-courage or being able to finish that off. You just saw it in practice right there.
Yeah, so I mean, I could really maybe tune that a little bit better, too, to make sure that Zidane gets his courage buff off. That's the one thing that was missing there, but this is more or less the result that's been going on, like with my mocking with this team, that you can reliably, I think, beat that light team, but usually you end up with a casualty. I haven't been able to get very many clean wins out of it just yet, unless you happen to get lucky with like the re-raise and maybe somebody sticks around. But
yep,
yeah, I think it's it's a pretty decent team.
Yeah, overall, definitely solid. I mean, Glassy got that reflex to start, but even without that, I think you're sitting in a good spot.
So let me try another option that I was cooking up here. This one is going to be a lightning team this time.
Okay. You want me to keep the mono light element here?
Yeah, let's stick with that same team. I want to do like a different look here, kind of going, because I think that's the team that I think that I'm seeing the most anyway, whether it's Arena or Guild Wars. So basically this idea that I had with the lightning team was kind of a rush strat, and credit to folks in my guild because it's something that we've been kind of looking at within the guild as well. But essentially the idea is to disrupt Helena's second buff and eliminate her ability to remove courage, which, courage is a big part of Elias' survivability for lightning. So
Good point.
being able to do that, you know, you need high agility, you need good four movements or better, and that should do the trick. Because assuming that you know Helena is in one of those middle slots behind the bunker there, you know she's going to be able to hit somebody that's has taken their second turn. So
That's a good point. Let's do it.
See how this goes.
Okay, so we're running this Alaya, Charlotte, and Resnick team. Super interesting combo. I've not seen Charlotte active in like a year and a half, so I'm very intrigued just to like see how she holds up here.
So really the idea with Charlotte was just for the Keen Blade to kind of rush everybody out. Obviously you could use Alphonse and do the same thing, but that's kind of the idea there.
Being frank, Alphonse runs the risk of all these soul teams of not having any real value.
True. So I got the light res buff coming in from Resnick, and
Amazing.
should be a Keen Blade.
And that's got to be, yep, and that's the Termline ring on Resnick to achieve that. That's very smart AI movement. So here's my first buff from Helena. You're right, I think you're going to get in bait range.
So we should be able to get a haste here and move forward.
Haste is huge.
And Charlotte should get maybe some debuff resist here, and then so I shut off her hate buff because I have hate down on the other units, so I don't need it.
I like it.
And make sure that she gets that protect and shell.
Very smart.
It's the 40% protect and shell, so yeah, no damage.
That is exceptional.
So here's the true test.
But this is a chain now. It's a light chain. Let's see if it does anything. Wow.
Still didn't do anything.
Impressive.
Okay, so we CT down.
This is one of those fights that Charlotte are...
That did drop Stern in the turn order, I believe, there, by the way.
It did.
Since he was hasted. This is going to kill any debuffs I have on. Charlotte, can she do anything?
Yeah, Lightning Apparel, I would think. Surge Strike, interesting.
I did give her the 100% hit because potential evasion.
That's a really smart build. Oh my god, this is over. Wow. Addison took that hit like a champ, though.
She did. She's got the protect and the barrier on.
Yep.
But good separation now between the tank.
Yeah, I can't get them grouped in an AoE.
No damage.
Oh my god. This is a Charlotte showcase all of a sudden.
I got some more buffs coming in. Yeah, Addison's holding up better than I expected.
Better than I would have thought.
Good damage from Charlotte.
Can't get through that, though. Oh my god, that was actually awesome. That was very cool to witness.
There it is. There's the lightning counter to your meta light.
That is fantastic. If you ever needed an argument for Charlotte over Alphonse, man, that is... I'm impressed.
She held up even better than I thought. I mean, I did lead into the light resistance there with the L and a TMR, but even if I wasn't using that, like the damage would have been pretty small.
I agree. I was really... My sign for me was after Stern's Limit Break, which is the multi-hit, that Helena's follow-up ability, getting that light chain, different attack types, but I would have thought Helena would have nuked Charlotte, and the fact that she didn't off that element chain bodes very well for, like, you know, stress testing.
I really liked Alaya into Helena. You just need to figure out a way to block her courage removal, and kind of rushing her in there allows you to do that very easily, especially on this map. The previous map, you couldn't do that because it was so big and you could kind of turtle up and get 1,000 buffs off. This map is quite a bit different.
It's true. Well, and we're getting to the point, too, where Alaya's benefit is not necessarily the damage that she does anymore. It's the CT down. That's always been the OP part of her ability, quite honestly. The damage was really just the added effect. But, you know, Helena, we've talked about this, is not the fastest character in the world. So if you have an Alaya that can haste herself and CT down the enemies and get some lapping in the turn rotation, that'll absolutely do it for you.
And then the 4 movements on the entire team, too. Resnick, Charlotte, and Alaya all have that 4 moves. So
huge.
Allows them to move across the map pretty quickly.
Definitely.
So I'm going back to the win team for this one, but we see Saul there. So what are you cooking up over there, Will?
So I'm running a Sol, Shals, and Helena team, and the basic idea is that Sol moves to Helena in the middle to buff her. Shals will move here to grant courage to Sol, who will be in range for her. I have the Tourmaline ring +6, which means Shals will have a second turn of jump +1, which means after Helena buffs and moves, regardless of the direction Helena moves, Shals will jump down and get that giant AoE buff on them for the dark res, the light res, the crit evade, etc., etc. This is a very, very potent team in top 5, arguably better than the team we were just running because of the blend of AoE damage, unit damage, status effects from poison and sleep, and Shawls with that survivability and sustain. You have the pyro calling from Soul, which is a huge survivability tool for Helena. A lot of generic magic cards on here, as you'll see. We probably have it on the screen in terms of like Holiday Party and the Ramu card, but character wise, like this is a great team.
I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can ready up whenever you want.
So I'm actually going to going to tweak my build a little bit for this one, and we'll see how it pans out here.
Yeah, what are you planning? I know we were concerned about the Zidane double buff where he doesn't get his courage off because that long range AoEs we were talking about 6 squares away. You have some risk there of him not using it. Are you thinking something else?
So with the Saul team, I'm a little bit less worried about like an evasion angle popping out. So I wouldn't be leaning so heavily into accuracy with the team. So that's kind of the different angle I'm taking here, and I'm going to go for maybe a little bit of an evasive wind angle. See how that works out.
Intriguing.
The nice thing about this evasive wind team is that it's still going to be very, very accurate just because I'm actually doubling up on luck cards, and that's kind of
nice.
you know, the evasiveness there kind of naturally because they both have pretty high luck. So see if it works out, the kind of semi-evasion play here.
Okay. Yeah, super excited to see how this plays out. I've not seen Zidane stress tested against this kind of team, so I'm particularly intrigued in that. But obviously also seeing Glacial, I know she does relatively well against these kinds of teams. All right, so we're taking this Soul team against this Wind team. You got some Evade built in here, so there'll be some RNG. We had a lot of status effects here. Sadali's got that Charm and Confusion. I got some Poison and Sleep, although we've got some gearing against that. So overall, I'm intrigued to see how Zidane obviously holds up. But I've set this team up so that, you know, should have a lot of unit res, which, you know, I also have that physical barrier, which Zidane should break. So I'm curious how the durability of this team will hold up, all things considered.
And from my perspective, when I see these mages, I'm always thinking of maybe potentially exploiting that accuracy angle. Of course, you can shore that up, and you know, reincarnations can shore that up as well. But that is certainly, you know, one of their de facto weaknesses that you can take advantage of. Wind does have good cards, especially if you have the near automata card to kind of facilitate evasion. Zidane, he's got good base luck that you know, he can kind of lean that way if you build him for it. So.
No, it's true. And even though I might have those like marshmallow rings on, the luck vision cards, unless you have your own luck card on, like my own team, that's typically, you know, at minimum what you need to hit these units, and I don't have that on currently. Most of these teams don't.
If it's a mixed team like this one, they wouldn't. The light team
might have
probably
the Helena card. I know you're going with that. Yeah.
Right.
And there's a miss. So it doesn't.
So again, we're still able to get the bait on. Still able to get the bait on her instead of her second buff there. So that's good.
Oh, big.
Dane does get his courage.
Big courage there. Yep. Hopefully can seal courage removal on Soul. There's the lock TMR that you had equipped, and that's going to increase his luck a heck of a lot. Agility, obviously, as well, and Zidane's very fast. I at least get a very clutch cure there from Soul. Paired Blessing. Ideally, I would want, obviously, Helena to get that Paired Blessing, but can't choose that. Crit evaded down. We'll see what Helena does here now versus this team, what she opts for. Goes for the single target on Glassy. I'm kind of surprised. Maybe it's a hit rate thing, or maybe she just couldn't hit Zidane, and...
I think so.
And
hopefully I can get a heal here from Sodali. Nope.
Nope, offensive AI, but at least able to get the re-raise. I think Shawls should be able to heal if Soul doesn't heal her up here first. He doesn't, it's not that ability. But I have the TMR here. What? Oh my! Shawls with the epic drop for the Sentry to not heal up Helena there. I'm very surprised. I don't know how that's possible. Let's see if
Maybe it was like a height range thing.
Had to have been. Can Soul clutch this though? Because he still has I think he still has Courage active. He's got a heal in his back pocket. Misses both targets though. There's Curative Prayer. I'm so surprised she couldn't get that off on Helena.
And see, the follow-up really does nothing to Saul because of his high unit resistance, but
yep,
Oelde should be able to do something to him here.
At least get the Courage. Can I hit though? That's the question. Probably not. Oh, predictive counter. You animal.
Big.
Very big. I'm surprised because Zidane's typical counter ability is the magic and slash res counter. To have predictive counter is a curveball. That's really good though. Very clutch raise at least. Can I get... Alright.
I do like the predictive counter on him just because, you know, you may not necessarily be fighting the slash or strike, I think, is the main ones it works against.
I think it's magic. I think it's slash and magic, if I recall.
Is it?
I think so, yeah. This is a pretty crazy fight we're watching right now, though.
Yeah, this... Saul just keeps getting healed up, thoughtily.
Fortunately, I think that Marshmallow is preventing a lot of those status effects from Sidali too. That confusion, it's not happening because of it. We're down to basic attacks.
Finally.
Oh my god.
It's like the raid boss status.
Seriously, and that's it. Now we're gonna run out of turns. You're gonna win on turn.
Oof.
I was actually wondering if you might have lost. If you didn't attack me there, you might have lost. Shells might have had enough HP, more than both of them combined. I was really hoping for that. Still, I think what we're trying to demonstrate, you perfectly saw encapsulated there. Where there's some RNG missing a lot of those AoEs. You're getting Helena slightly baited out of range. She's not able to, seal as much of the re-raise. And obviously, like, you're getting some timing differences with cast times on things. Good fight. Good fight overall.
I think that there is like some potential with the win team. You could also potentially build into like bulk and damage as another avenue, but I do think that there's some potential there against like pretty much all of the mage variants that are running around at the moment.
I would agree.
I think the Glassy just got a little bit too far out in front of the others, and there wasn't enough follow-up damage before she went down.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, so this was one of the teams I had prepared to fight up against this Soul Helena team. And it is, again, kind of similar to the Win team, really trying to abuse their accuracy issues. And this one is an Earth Evasion team. So this one is with Bradley and with Lucio.
Awesome. And
I've got Renoa in there to kind of haste them up and give them some healing if they do take some damage.
Awesome team. I'm expecting good things from that. This is a great team, and it's proven to be for weeks now. Halloween, Lucio, and Bradley together, not only for the barrier break, but the healing power down, the slash chains that they build up. There's a lot there between the two of them. Bradley with the subterfuge buff is super creative. I would imagine that probably fades by the time they get across, but you might get a turn of it. That's sometimes all you need. All right, so this is the third attempt at taking this. Toggles are tough. Well, so you're trying to build this Evade Earth team, and Bradley using Subterfuge to start here, as you'll see. But there's some difficulty sometimes in terms of if enemies don't get in range, they'll rebuff. Sometimes they'll cast things twice, so you don't want them to happen. But we'll see how this works out. I made a tweak where I turned off Unit Affinity on my Helena so that she will not accumulate agility as fast as she normally should. And that's very intentional that I want Pyro Calling to be able to get off before she gets her turn again. I did take the bow tie off her though, so I gave it so that Soul gets the courage here instead. That's really the ideal setup because at least Helena has re-raise, Soul has courage. Kind of want one to have, one or the other. And so Helena will still move 3 turns here, but her agility is a lot slower. that this should work. We're at least getting haste here now from Lucio. That's his own TMR that he's using. A lot of extra damage there. This is a great teammate buff from Renoa here to get that physical shield and the defense up. That's Subterfuge from Bradley again. Again, it's kind of the good or bad with that buff. You know, he's missing out on his own courage at the moment, but he's got 25 extra evasion, and like that is sometimes worth more than the courage at this point. And
that's kind of what I'm going for, is really to min-max his evasion. I would like him to get off his courage buff here, so hopefully he can do that.
He might, because I think Helena's on a higher range or higher height, that he might not be able to hit that from the distance. There's haste coming in here now. This is a great timed haste as well. Lucio with a great healing power down, dispels all those buffs that Shells just gave. There's the courage. That's a fantastic mid-fight ability here on top of the haste. Getting a limit break here from Soul. We'll see if he hits. I mean, this is some high evade units. I would be shocked if he hit.
Wow, surprised he can hit Bradley there. Okay.
Interesting. So I do have the white marshmallow accessory at least. But still, some RNG there that normally may not happen.
Really didn't take much damage though.
No, very, very strong in that regard. Rose Blast here misses, but they at least take the debuff for the AoE res down. Calculator End almost finishes her off. I think he has re-raise move. He'll likely remove re-raise here. Yeah, Mortal Draw takes out.
Got the heal back there as well.
Awesome.
Need a heal from Renoa.
Which I think... Oh, no. The cast time's not going to make it. That's okay.
So I got the hate down on Brad because of his 4 movements, so that really saved him there.
Wow, they're taking that hit like a champ, though.
The buffs are still up on them, so we need Lucio to get in there and...
Oh!
Ooh.
Oh! But she's probably going to get nuked here by Renoa.
There it is.
Wow! At least he gets another turn. Not enough damage, though. Lucio's still alive. Okay. Who's Bradley going to hit? Aww.
With the drain zone, I love it.
Too bad, so sad. It was so close.
So we probably got a heal coming in here.
God, look at Renoa taking her sweet-ass time. Whatever she's deciding to do.
That's the downside of not getting off her her cast time increase.
Yep.
Decrease, rather.
There we go. Now it's just a matter of time. There's limit break. That's going to do... Not a oh, okay, no, it did a lot of damage. A lot of damage.
Can we get a heal, Renoa? No.
No. Again, we're seeing why I rounded down on my Renoa grade. I couldn't get past some of the AI problems with her. It drove me nuts.
I think if I was doing this back against this team, I probably would turn off the spell of shielding and have her just cast her cast time decrease instead.
Yeah.
But your Saul was very, very accurate. I'm surprised he was able to hit me at all there. My Bradley is really min-maxed right now.
Interesting. Oh. Look at that. She's trying her best. That's cute.
There's the garbage time.
I love it.
Style points.
Right on. Honestly, really good fight. That was fantastic.
Yeah. So it got the job done. There was, I think that Helena really couldn't do too much. She just was able to holy, but Saul getting that courage remove onto Bradley was pretty big. Thankfully, he had enough AoE resistance with Renoa's haste that he really didn't take much damage at all from it.
No, definitely not. Okay, so we have a couple questions here, but the first one, and it's a two-parter. Number one, do you think tanks are less relevant in the current meta? And the follow-up to that is, what makes them less relevant? And are there any holding up, and why? So do you have any thoughts on that first part of it? Are tanks less relevant in the current meta?
The classic tanks are much less relevant, if not non-existent, in the current meta. They're really like the only ones you see nowadays are the most recent ones: Raph, Glassy, and Dialdo. Very little of the older tanks. Brain, I guess, is actually, you can throw him in the bucket. He's actually gotten quite a bit of play as of late. So really, that's kind of a couple of styles. You have kind of the brick wall tanks that are very, very difficult to kill. Your Dialdos, your Rains, etc. And then you have your Glassy, which is kind of the new style tank, providing the aura benefits I think what has made them less relevant primarily has been the select attacks, where it just completely bypasses the tank's hate, and you can't rely on the area resistance like we used to, because it completely ignores it. So I think that's one of the main reasons. How about you?
Ironically, I was going to say that no, they're not less relevant. And I'll quantify a little bit because when you categorize your tanks, you're right. The more recent ones, Raft, Dialdo, Summer Glassy come to mind. They were as relevant now as they were upon release in the past 5 6 months. King Mont has not been relevant since Firevade at the third anniversary. Rain has come back. Who's another tank? Engelbert, like he's been around, but not really relevant. So I think the tanks that have been relevant are still relevant for different reasons. I think we noticed a big dip down in the Elia meta for exactly that reason you just stated of the select abilities. But for her, it was because it was a select 3. Like that was a giant AoE. Although Soul still has the select 2, it's not nearly as debilitating as the select 3 on that same radius as it was. And so, for what tanks still offer in terms of like dictating enemy movement, still being able to soak up a hit or two, even if it's not always a select 2, but like right now, Helena, tanks are fine against Helena. She does not have that problem of the select 2. So, I think tanks are still very much relevant. It's just the same tanks as the last 3 or 4 months. And they have to really provide some kind of additional value. And if they don't, then you're right. The prototypical tank doesn't really have a place in the game. But that's not meta related. I think that's just game balance related.
I mean, I think that one of the reasons why Dialdo was hanging for as long as he has is not only is he hard to kill, but he was doing a ton of damage. I think he's been exposed recently because of the evasion that's been running around, and he can't hit a lot of the current units that are being used. But prior to that, like during the Elia and during the Sol, the peak of those metas, he was doing tons and tons of damage.
Yep. Totally. Well, then you consider some of the cost stuff we've done too recently. A lot of these tanks are 100 costs, so it's been tough to fit them into that cost format. So, yeah, in that like recency bias, they've been less relevant because of cost related reasons in addition to that. But in terms of, what makes them less relevant, I would agree. The lack of auras is a big one because of the select 2. But more than anything, it's because most older tanks are just meat shields, and tanks need to be more than meat shields nowadays. They need to offer either some kind of big damage upside or some kind of huge utility, like team fight changing upside. And if you don't, then you're probably better served with a different character.
Yeah, I mean, even in the case of Rain, that he has been very good, but it's really more on the back of like Shawls and Sol than it is Rain, because I mean he has had that large area resistance for quite a while. It really wasn't until he got the further support and buffs coming from those other 2 units, and as well as the healing, that really enabled that team. So I'd say it's definitely more on the back of the support than it is on his tanking ability.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we got quite the reader on this one. This is a fun think piece, though. So let's say hypothetically Gumi removed AP and TP from the game entirely and redesigned some things to have different effects, whatever. But essentially, you'd have infinite AP and TP and be limited only to ability count. Maybe you could have ways to reduce ability counts. That'd be a new game mechanic. It would be a huge undertaking overall. But do you think that would be a net positive or a net negative for the game, or are we neutral about it? Do you have any thoughts on that in terms of the implications of removing AP and TP, and if that's a positive move?
I'm not sure if it is a positive move. I feel like that, at least for like the hardcore players, because I think that it reduces the complexity at this point. Because I mean, we already do have ability counts in the game. That's already there. So at that point, it would essentially just be removing like a gating resource, which is the AP and TP, and that's the AP management game. Although it's not nearly what it used to be like in the early days of the game. Units still do have AP issues, and that's something that we look at, in terms of grading how good they are, where they're good, where they might not be good. I mean, I guess I can see an argument that, it does make it a little bit easier to play, especially maybe for, if you're thinking about ways to maybe bring in new players and kind of, I don't know, make it a little bit more new player friendly. But I'm not sure if it would be worth like the work at this point to kind of do all that rebalancing. What are you thinking?
I was going to say the same. So for the amount of work, it's not worth the rebalancing. I don't think it provides enough upside for the work. But if you were to start the game from scratch, would that have been a better alternative way to approach it? I say no. I say no because I think there's strategic things to certain classes in terms of like mages having a higher amount, physical damage having less amounts, that I like the distinctness that AP gives certain characters. That you're right, it adds wrinkles and complexities to what they can do. That I think you would get a lot more vanilla if you just removed AP altogether.
Think my issues with AP and TP have has more been not on the concept of it itself, but more so on the development side and not being very nuanced in how they harness it. Because really, their approach has been to kind of take away that differentiation that there was at the beginning between like mages and physical units, and really just make it more homogenous. Where physical units, they're more and more not having that limitation where it's really not that much of a benefit these days to be a mage, because you've lost that AP edge in a lot of cases.
Yep, I agree with that. Next question is so far, do you think the limit break upgrades have done enough to keep old units relevant? Who are the biggest winners and losers? I'll kick this one off. Yes, I think they have. There's been some significant ones. I think it's always a question of what's considered relevant, and I think it's really just the biggest question because there are certain characters that were irrelevant for so much more than just their limit break. I don't think it's even good game design to make a character relevant just because their limit break is good. If anything, I see these limit breaks as opportunities to like well-round a character for power creep, and I think most of them they've done a really good job. I think the tank upgrades have been great. Charlotte and King Mont's obviously come to mind. A lot of these other units, I think, probably missed the mark in terms of making them more relevant because I don't think most of the limit break upgrades have let them do their job better. But like these tank limit break upgrades let them do their job better. So it's not just like a numbers game for some of these tank units. It's like a conceptual upgrade, which I think is better for them. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree that the tanks seem to have been like the most, relevant, like in terms of meta implications. I think that there have been a couple on some of like the damage dealers, like we talked a little bit about Laswell's during our tier list discussion. Does it make him a relevant character? No. Is it a nice upgrade in a vacuum? It is. It's a very nice upgrade. You can also say the same about like Halloween Frederica's as well. I think it's if you actually look at what it is, it's a nice upgrade. Is she a good unit and does it actually change her position? No. And I think that's more like the where I think that these LBs have fallen off for me a little bit in terms of like if you compare them to like the job upgrades that they did and kind of those sweeping changes where you have one shot at a limit burst. It has to be incredible for it to really have a big impact on the game. And if I'm looking at them all outside of maybe the couple of tank ones, I don't think that they've really been there yet.
I agree, 100%. And I've always thought that limit breaks are really great, particularly for content that's only one fight only, arena, free match, things like that. But even then, I feel like limit breaks, to your point, they have a specific use. There's a timing element to them that if a character is not good, I don't think a good limit break will typically save them. Okay, so the next question is, really enjoyed what we're talking about new Final Fantasy characters and collabs and whatnot. And this is just a general question to hear our impressions of each Final Fantasy, like the game itself, outside of War of the Vision. And right now we're specifically in Final Fantasy IX. Do you have any thoughts about Final Fantasy IX? This is our chance to just like talk about the game, regardless of motive. What are you thinking about Final Fantasy IX?
I think that it's always had a very charming kind of atmosphere and characters. I remember like very much at the time being like, after coming out of Final Fantasy VII, coming out of Final Fantasy VIII, they had the 3D characters, more of like an edgy appeal. And it was the more like cartoony look, a more whimsical fantasy kind of setting. And I remember being like a young teenager at the time, I was like, what is going on here? And once I started playing it, my first Final Fantasy game that I got super into was Final Fantasy VI. And it very much brought me back to kind of the ones pre-7, which when you think about kind of, it was Sakaguchi's kind of swan song. It was the last one that he was kind of head, developer or whatever, I believe. So he kind of really put his stamp and all those original Final Fantasies, he kind of was kind of going for more of that appeal. And I remember really liking that at the time, although, like I said, when I first saw it, I really wasn't sure.
Yeah, I'm with you almost word for word for most of that. So when nine was released, I abhorred Final Fantasy 9. I didn't even finish it. I really didn't. I got like to the fourth disc and just quit because I'm like I don't really care. I had started off with tactics and then 7 and then 8. I had known of 9, 8, 6 a little bit. And the thing for me is because Final Fantasy, my first impression was this more like tech oriented angle, a little more modern. Art style aside, you're 100% right. The art style is not only completely jarring, but I just mean like motif of the game. That when I got to 9 and all of a sudden it was just kind of like, it was medieval, which is okay, but it was more fantasy medieval. It didn't fit the theme of what I came to love from Final Fantasy. Like the 9 medieval was way different than the tactics medieval. So nothing about the game resonated with me. Even the characters, I didn't like any of the characters. I absolutely hated Steiner. I thought he was all I couldn't bear to watch him on the screen. Even like some of the plot lines like Eco and her script that they gave her was just like annoying to me for a while. Amarant came in, was like this cool silent guy, but kind of just did nothing. And so in the when you talk about like the game at that time, the music was okay. I actually did appreciate the music, but I just dropped the game. I just really had no investment in it. I didn't think it was a decent enough storyline, and I ended up replaying it years later on like PSP when it was released on the PlayStation Network. Much better in hindsight, like with the age, my own maturity, but B, understanding video games more, appreciating the combat system a little more, really like looking at the script, looking past the aesthetic. There's a lot there that they did really, really well, and it has aged very well, in my opinion. Yeah,
I would agree with that. I did really, really like the card game in it, the Tetramaster, I think it
yeah,
was called.
yep,
I liked it a lot more than the Triple Triad, which was the Final Fantasy VIII version. I thought that personally, I thought 9 was like the best variant of that, and I remember kind of collecting all the cards from finding all of the various NPCs that you would challenge, and really kind of got into that little mini game that was part of the world. I enjoyed that too.
totally. Oh, I can't believe I talked about all that and forgot the jump the shark moment when they introduced Queena. That was the moment for me when they introduced Queena into the game. That I'm like, dude, what am I doing with this? Like, this is embarrassing to play. Like, if someone walked in and saw like yeah, too silly.
Yeah, I was not a fan of that character at all.
No, just
Even now, I'm not a fan of it.
no, not at all. And final question here is: what if Hiroki came to you guys asking what the new winter unit should be? What abilities should they have to be enticing to pull? Cost 100? Could be brand new mechanics or a combination of older mechanics. Whom would you create? What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, I talked a little bit about it on earlier in the cast, but I've been waiting for the magic tank to come out. I mean, they've been releasing all these insane mages. They're drumming up that demand for the glassy equivalent on the magic side. So I would pull for that for a Christmas unit. I know at least here on Global, like the Christmas units leave a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, including mine, just because they've been treated so poorly in terms of their upgrades pretty much since the first year. They've been delayed and mishandled and things. Hopefully this is the first year where we can kind of put that behind us, and we'll be on the same schedule as JP, and we don't necessarily need to worry about that going forward. But yeah, I would hope for a magic tank. I think that would be fun.
Yeah, I would like to be more original than that, but I'm not going to be. I completely agree with you. A magic aura. The timing makes completely sense. It would be a perfect balance in terms of you have your physical aura, now you have your magical aura. It'll then also set the precedent that all limit break upgrades can be eligible for magic aura, which I'm looking forward to for future tanks to get a potential magic aura. So I like bringing this in sooner rather than later. One of the things that I am looking forward to, I thought Eld would have it, but he didn't. Helena has the AoE imperil, the percent. I'm waiting for the single target imperil, that's the percent. And that'd be kind of cool on this tank to come in and reduce everyone's single target res by a certain percentage. It's only a matter of time. They've already done it with the AoE. They're going to do it with the single target, so I'd like that. I would like it to be I think it'd still be okay to be a magic scaling character, but I'd like for them to maybe get back into the magic missile scaling in terms of like what Garville was doing for a little while there, and Sadali has like kind of like weave some of that back in, because we have seen the negatives to zero missile resistances that I think when you talk about like really like perfect balance, I think putting that in, and then you can lump them in with some bow and gunner cards and open up more doors for them. I think there's some interesting things there potentially. It may not make conceptual sense, like if you figure a gun unit's probably like outside the magic aura range, but I like the idea of again just opening some doors there.
I'd like to see kind of a frontline support as well. Like a lot of the supports that we have in the game are very fragile, and you really kind of want them to sit back and kind of do nothing until they need to. It's kind of like the Sylvie concept, but maybe just done like like a Saul, I think, is also kind of along those same lines, but he doesn't bring as much of like the mid fight support other than the healing. So I think maybe kind of melding of those two styles of characters, that I think that would be another interesting idea too.
It's a great idea. If they made it, not, don't even make them a tank, make them a support with a magic aura. I would love to see something even like that. That, dare I say, that's almost like Fryevia 1.0. If you gave her a magic aura and just let her curata and do white mage stuff the whole
Yes.
time, like that's an interesting concept to have a support on the front line that gives that aura but doesn't draw the hate. That almost might be broken without counterplay, that you can't focus them, that the aura would be like the last thing to go down.
Yeah, I guess they couldn't be very tanky themselves. Yeah, maybe they can just make other people tanky.
Yeah.
But,
Creative
yeah.
idea though. I like it. But that's everything we had. Again, today was kind of a free winding conversation piece about a couple of things that are relevant. We wanted to show off Helena, obviously, and have some fun with the theory crafting. All things considered, I think that went pretty well. Anything else you want to talk about here now before we kind of cut things off, or things you're looking forward to?
No, I mean, I think the theory crafting was one of my favorite aspects of the game. So I do enjoy those new meta units coming in and trying to think about different ways, different out of the box things that you can do, utilize older units that maybe we haven't looked at in a while. So that was fun to kind of think about what Charlotte's doing and actually see it come to fruition and actually see her do something pretty cool. So I'd like to get into more of that. And if anybody has any ideas, throw them in the comments, or any teams that you've been working on. Feel free to share.
Yeah, looking forward to it. But that's all we got for now. So thanks for watching, everybody. Good luck pulling for Vivi this week, and we'll talk to y'all later.